This is what generally the Scrum one, because normally we need to understand in reference to the Agile model or Agile methodology, because as you guys know, like when we are working on application development, irrespective of technology and the domain, there are different models we use. Something like waterfall model, V model.
Correct.
Nowadays we are using is Agile. Okay, Agile is a methodology, but as you mentioned, because there were people who comes from non-IT side also nowadays, because Scrum Master is a role more or less like team management role. It is team management role, where how effectively managing the teams is what something one has to learn if anybody wants to get into the field of Scrum Master role. But in reference to the Agile implementation is concerned, it is not only for IT development, because most of the people have some misconception. I don't generalize this for everyone. Usually, most of the people have a misconception that Agile happens in IT. To an extent possible, Agile implementation we do in IT development, but even in non-IT also, Agile implementation can be done. So people who are transforming their career from non-IT to IT and who wants to look for a better career in the field of IT, especially having management experience, all these, usually Scrum Master is what something which is suitable to them. Because if you see any application, we see Agile.
Raj, just hang on 1 second. Hello, Jane. Okay, somebody had just come into the session. I don't know if you noticed that, but don't worry, they're gone. All right, sorry, Raj, you can continue.
So whenever you see in Agile, so this is how generally Agile projects works on. So you can see it on Scrum. Because normally Agile is a way of approach. Normally we do the development. But in reference to the implementation of Agile itself is concerned, it's mainly depends on Scrum framework. Because there are different frameworks and processes we use in Agile. Like Scrum framework, Kanban, XP, Lean, DSDM, right? Crystal, RUP. There are a lot of frameworks for there. So one of the prominent framework which normally we use called Scrum framework. This is where generally Scrum Master role is majorly involved in. Of course, there are other roles as well apart from Scrum Master, like product owner, right? So Scrum team, all that. But majorly product owners are the people who, let me highlight this. So here you can see there is a stakeholder where stakeholder is providing us some inputs and all that. There will be a role called product owner who usually define the goal and vision of the product. Because if you want to develop any product and all, defining the goal and vision of the product is something essentially important, which normally product owners do. Based on that, what will happen, whatever the items were there in the product backlog, usually, especially there are different tools we use. One is on JIRA. Majorly prominent tool we use called JIRA. It is for project management, bug tracking, all that. So here, whatever the product backlog items maintained by the product owner, development team responsibility is to create sprints. That's where generally the sprint planning come into picture. Like this is what one of the Scrum ceremonies I can say. The first one is called sprint planning. So they do what are the priority items and all, everything will be decided in the sprint. Subsequently, development team will develop those accordingly. But end of the day, if you see the development team, it's more like technical people, combination of cross-functional teams even sometimes. Even development people who are experienced in coding, user interface design, testing, database, all the people will be there. But someone has to coordinate this activity because, for example, development team is ensuring that a work can be completed in a week time, for example, right? So there is some high priority of task items they have taken by the understanding over the product owner. So this development team wants to complete the task within the specific timelines. Let's say, for example, 1 week. So 1 week means in reference to the weekdays and all everything, it is 5 working days, right? So 5 working days. Now, within 5 working days, assume that if it is 8 hours per day, assume that 5 people are working, 8 into 5, 40 hours into 5, right? Somewhere around 200 hours will be there. So 200 hours is what generally the available time. Available time. Within 200 hours of time, how much time will it be taken for them to complete the sprint? Were they capable enough to complete the sprint or not in the related time, all that? Or else what are the kind of impediments they have identified? So how to solve the impediments and all? Generally, this is where Scrum Master role is majorly lied upon. Because Scrum Master, to be specific to you to understand, Scrum Master is more or less like a team facilitator role, right? So we act as a facilitator by understanding the goal and vision of the product owner. Subsequently, whatever the assurance development team has taken to complete the project or a particular task within the timelines, Scrum Master responsibility is to ensure the team has to complete the task within the given timelines. Because every sprint will have some sprint goal. For example, if you have taken a sprint, the sprint will have a goal. Sprint will have a sprint goal. So make sure the sprint goal has to be achieved by the development team. That's what generally responsibilities of a Scrum Master, they do it. Sometimes this sprint goal will deviate. When, let's say there are some four user stories taken or 4 issues were taken. As of now, product owner has given this, development team has started working on it. In this meanwhile, assume that there was some user story or a functionality which development team product owner wants to change. What will happen now? Whatever the scope which was identified for that particular sprint will be deviated. To what extent it deviates, right? Change scope, right? How it is impacting on the particular sprint. If there are any new items coming into the picture once the sprint has started. Once the sprint has started, underline this point. Once the sprint has started, who has to be taken care of all that? Who will be handling that responsibility? So why is it happening? What could be the possible impact for the existing sprint? Right? So is it really interested? Is it really possible for us to retain this in the existing sprint or making into the next sprint? This is all something Scrum Master has to be taken care of. This is one responsibility. Another responsibility being a Scrum Master is to review the process. Let's say, for example, there is 2 weeks of sprint we have taken. So every week there is a review meeting has to be conducted by the Scrum Master with product owner and as well as with the development team and other stakeholders also. So that they will be knowing about the progress of work. What are the committed items we have taken? What were completed so far? Is it completed according to the goal what we have defined so far or not? So for that review meeting has to be conducted. In this review meeting, normally being a Scrum Master, we has to prepare some reports. Something like burn down charts, burn up charts, at the same time velocity. Velocity means what are based on the previous work, what we have done so far. To what extent people have possibility to complete the remaining task within the specific timelines and all, we have to see that, right? So projection is something important. We have to predict that. That's where generally this review meetings and all everything will be conducted by the Scrum Master. This is also one of the responsibility we have to make sure. Next is sprint retrospection. Normally when sprint retrospection we do is once the sprint is completed, before you are going to start the next sprint, retrospection come into picture. In this retrospection, we see, right, to what extent the targeted sprint goal we have achieved so far. If we have not achieved it so far and all that, to what extent we want to do it and what are the quality deliverables we want to add in the next sprint. So all these things has to be taken care of by the Scrum Master. So Scrum Master role, in short, I can say, it's more or less Scrum Master is like a facilitator role who facilitates between product owner to development. That's what they has to do. Because we never know what kind of impediments happen in Scrum. Sometimes your people are technically strong, but they are failed in reaching the deadlines due to the pressure, right? There can be an issue. Or else sometimes your people are not technically strong enough, but they somehow they have taken, but they have not understood the real complexity of the work. So that time also there might be a failure. Sometimes there is a possibility where whatever the work was taken by the development team is deviated by the product owner. Means product owner is adding some more things and all everything. What will happen? Whatever the level of complexity, what is that we have seen is something different than the reality. Right? There are possibilities sometimes these sort of things will happen, right? So complexity increases if you are adding new iterations, all that. So that time also there will be a possibility of impediment. So there are different impediments which will be there, which has to be addressed by the Scrum Master. It's more like a scenario based. It's not something like a programming language kind of stuff, right? So 1 + 2 = 3. It's not something of that sort. So what kind of scenarios we really come across and how to handle it? Because if there is any deviation happens in the existing work, how to address that? If there any scope change happen, how to do that, right? So we need to understand the effort estimation, right? At the same time, we need to understand the defect tracking. So we need to understand the velocity, to what extent this velocity can be minimized or streamlined, and all everything that we have to be taken care of. All these things, there must be a role has to be played. This is where generally Scrum Master is required. So the reason I told you, it's not only to the field of IT, even non-IT people are also learning Scrum Master due to this reason. Because whoever is working in any organization, either it can be banking, it can be automobile, it can be insurance, it can be retailing, it can be healthcare. End of the day, every department, every organization, they have their own IT team. Because internal applications to manage, internal applications to develop and manage and all, they required some IT team. So that IT team has to ensure whatever the requirement stakeholders required in the existing organization must be finished within the timelines. So that's the reason why Scrum Master role is something becoming inevitable in all the organizations, because Agile is something we are implementing more on the organization level. This is where generally Scrum Master role come into existence.